This is everything that I grew. So basically what I always do, I think this one has Monarda, which is where you get some of that pink too.
Lovely.
Rose hips, lemon verbena.
That's another one I noticed moving to Wisconsin is the Monarda.
Oh my God, I love
We
it.
did not have any Monarda in Oregon.
Yeah, I grow like 4 kinds and it's just amazing.
I can't wait.
It's one of my favorite plants, honestly.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's like upper respiratory support and all of that, and it's antiviral, antibacterial, all those amazing things. So,
yeah, and it's beautiful to look at, and the pollinators love it.
Yep, exactly, and it's native, so you know that it's...
I mean, I guess they call it bee balm, right? That's how you know the pollinators like
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm really excited to have on Denise Cusack. Welcome to the show, Denise.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really excited you're here.
Excited to be here. Beautiful area. Why don't you kind of set the stage for us in the audience where we're at right now?
We live in south central Wisconsin, just outside of Madison, and we have just a few acres here, and it's mostly, we're on the edge of a drumlin, so we have a lot of woods on one side and then prairie on the other, so we've done a lot of restoration for those different habitats here. And south central Wisconsin, as you know, you've been here for a while in Wisconsin in general, it's so green and luscious. The fall is gorgeous, although it's raining today, we're dripping a little.
Nice ambiance.
Yes, exactly, which is fall after not raining all summer. But all the leaves change. We have 4 beautiful, distinct seasons. It's really amazing, and I really love it here. It's we're so happy to have found this space, you know, after years of not being able to grow. So we have like the land, we have the trees, we have everything here. It's beautiful.
So am I correct? This is called Holy Rooted Farm. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us more about the work you do here?
Yes, we do a lot. First, we're a United Plant Savers Botanical Sanctuary, and we grow at-risk species. We also take some of the plants that we grow here off of the Wisconsin endangered list and at-risk plants here. If you came in, as you drove in, we're across from a natural area that's a few thousand acres, just right back there. So we look at things that are endangered in that space too, because we know that it could grow here. It would have natively grown here before, you know, cultivation here. So the types of plants we grow, we try to plant every year, you know, the Solomon seal, echinaceas, different types. We also grow like ginseng, golden seal, blue cohosh, black cohosh, wild ginger, a lot of those things, false unicorn, true unicorn. And we try to grow things in their native and natural habitat. While we do grow, you know, some of these areas that you saw, we do grow them like a nursery because some of these native plants, they're so slow to start that they can take a year or 2 before you really plant them up. Yeah. And with so much wildlife here, we will work like as in a little mini nursery, and then we transplant things out. But we also have, we direct plant like ramps and things out into the woods here as well. So we have, you know, we grow for that. We don't harvest those plants if they're endangered. We use them just to develop stands, and some of those will take a whole lifetime to develop like a full stand. We also grow a lot of perennial and annual herbs here, and we grow them also for education and for Herbalists Without Borders. I grow a lot of herbs here that are donated directly into our donation network because a lot of people, you know, we encourage people to grow. We have seed grants. We want people to grow their own, but a lot of people don't have access to land. You know, it's a real privilege that we can have a few acres here, especially people who live where land is prohibitively expensive or they're in urban areas. So we understand that a lot of people may not be able to grow enough to serve the community needs where they are. And so we look to people like us here where we can grow things, but we also look to other people in our network because I can't grow certain plants here. Right. I'm north, you know, we're zone 5. Well, there we go. Real life.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you rarely hear that. But that was one reason we chose this place also. Sure. I have a child who has unique health needs, and when you move rurally in Wisconsin, actually having internet is a big deal, and having you know, EMS services nearby is a big deal. Sure. But we grow all different types, you know, grow about 250 different types of medicinal plants here. And we also grow food plants and things like that as well. Food is medicine, and so having seeds to a lot of that. One other area that I grow a lot is I try to grow things that are impossible to find. We grow some culturally relevant herbs that we know communities having herbs that mean something to people, that are from their culture and their communities, is so important. And again, people may not be able to grow those plants. So we grow some like Central and South American or Mexican herbs, for example, and then save seeds and get them out to people, because it's like huacate, and I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly for people who know, but it's in the marigold family, and it's, we have some over there. They grow so late because it is colder here, but we, try to grow things like that and then get seeds so that we can share it to people who can grow it for their own communities and use it in the way that it's intended for their own culturally. It's really important. I think when people taste and feel and have memories, scent memory, taste memory of things that are important to them from their culture, it is more healing, and I think it makes a profound impact on people. So that's what we try to do. We also grow like white sage, but we only donate that to communities who are indigenous or who use that traditionally, and not into just white folk communities who are going to smudge.
So is that grown in like a greenhouse, or how's that grown?
I grow it in ground here,
Amazing.
and it takes a while. We also grow other types like prairie sage, which is the native sage that's here. Sweetgrass grows natively here, which is amazing because it's funny, when we moved here, I started growing all of these plants, and then because it's out in the country, you don't really know what's here first. Right. And then it was amazing that I'm like, oh, this is just popping up in the wild. Oh, there's blue vervain. Oh, there's, and like you were saying earlier, goldenrod is everywhere.
Totally.
And I have a special type fireworks goldenrod that's cultivated, but there's so much goldenrod that, it's kind of monardas, all of those. But so we try to grow a little bit of everything, and we do some experimental growing on things, trying to develop, because of climate change, we know that zones are shifting and that certain plants may or may not be able to grow in certain areas. So if we can develop more like landrace, but not for vegetables, but landrace for herbs, if we can cultivate herbs that will be able to adapt better to climate change and be able to survive in our environment, like this summer it didn't rain pretty much for 4 months. If we can save those seeds of the plants that thrive in those conditions, then we're going to be better prepared as the future kind of shifts the climate, with all of this.
I know we did just have a record high temperature for October 3rd in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Wow.
So just out of my own curiosity, what are some of the endangered native Wisconsin plants that you are helping steward? You mentioned ramps, ginseng, and so on. Are those natives around here?
Yeah, they are. They grow. Blue cohosh is also from this area. Black cohosh. Those you don't see in the wild, but they were here originally. And that's one of those things. In this specific area, there are a few things, like we want to start a bog garden. That's a bog, a tamarack bog that's in that wild area. But there's a native species of orchid that actually is from Wisconsin, which is, who knew, and bog rosemary, things like that. But a lot of those plants, even certain species of the echinacea, is really, you rarely find them in the wild anymore. So, we're doing all of those. And I do let them travel. I like letting plants travel because that's what they do in the wild. So we have them moving around here, which is perfect, which is the good thing about wildlife. There's some bad where you're like, oh, the deer just ate my roses, and why didn't the thorns prevent these? They're two like juvenile deer that just think this is like a buffet.
We're learning about the bunnies around here while attempting to garden. So
that's why we have these, our nursery, and trialing. They're reflective metal, and I found that the rabbits don't like it as much, although I did find a bunny nest in there at one point, and the bunny couldn't get out. It was a baby. Oh. But usually, we've had no damage at all. And also deer don't like coming closer to buildings. They get twitchy.
Spooked.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. And that's why, like we have over there, you can see we have a greenhouse frame that has a fence around it. Yeah. Chicken wire to keep them out. Because they do. And they get spooked by things being over their head as well. Yeah. So, but it's also good in that you see what kind of plants can really thrive and survive and spread, naturally with all of these animals here.
Totally. Well, you're doing a lot of amazing work here, Denise. I would love it if you could kind of show us in the audience like a behind-the-scenes look at the Herbalists Without Borders area, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe giving us a little tour.
Yeah,
that'd
I'd love
be sweet.
to.
Awesome.
So I'm going to give you a tour of the U.S. Donation Distribution Network for Herbalists Without Borders. We're a really small nonprofit, so we don't have a big warehouse. We don't distribute via truck. So what I do is I intake donations from throughout the U.S. This is a U.S. network. We encourage each other network to create, each other country to create their own network, just because of customs and all of those rules and regulations. So for the U.S., we intake donations from all around the U.S., and then I gather them all here and inventory them. We lot batch. I know the herbalists want to know this part. Then we lot and batch everything. We have inventory management records so we can source where everything comes from. And then we redistribute them out. So what people do is coordinators of Herbalists Without Borders chapters, clinics, projects, do different types of community work. So a lot of them will do free clinics, or they'll create care kits or self-care kits, which is what we call like for unhoused folks or for people who are, refugees along the border, and distribute those. So we do all types of different products here that we accept as donations, from multivitamins and vitamin D3. We have people donate soap, sunscreen, hand sanitizer, of course herbs, aromatherapy products. And we get a lot of those things donated. A lot of our donors are actually members of Herbalists Without Borders who share from their own gardens each year. And we do accept donated herbs. We just want to know who sends them, of course. And then we also get donations from small businesses as well as big businesses like New Chapter, who is amazing and always sends us, huge lots of things every quarter. So for a lot of these donations, we send things as is, and the coordinators will send us wish lists of what they need. If there's also a disaster, people will create wish lists and then come back to us and say, here are the things that we need. So we have even containers and things like that. I also make a lot of things here for the U.S. donation group, the network, because a lot of coordinators are very busy, they don't have storage space or things like that, or people are really active in their communities and don't have time to make 200 of something. So we also make things here like inhalers, pain lotions, chest rubs, different types of blends, and anything that people need, even flower essences, and everything is bottled, labeled, and packaged here and shipped out. So this right here is our main space where we work. We have the work table, there's a little kitchenette, which is nice, and we also have some storage space where we store all of the donated products. Sometimes it's huge amounts. Dr. Bronner sent something that came on a pallet, which meant my family got to do a lot of work that day, but we also have smaller donations, and no donation is too small. There's people who will say, hey, I just closed my, retail store and I'm moving online and I have some herbs, and they'll share those types of things. So we have a lot of different types of products, which is really amazing, and we love to thank everyone for like whatever they donate from where they are. It's usually on our website as well. So if you want to see who's donated, both individuals and companies, you can go see our website. But we also have a lot of coordinators donating. So some of our coordinators, we were just talking about Eugene, they'll have a donation for Mountain Reserves, for example, and then it's more than what they need sometimes in the local area, so they'll share back. And what we call that is our reciprocity-based mutual aid system. So people who have extra or too much will share back into people who don't have enough, so that we're more equitably distributing all of these products. We also grow our own herbs here that we donate into the system as well, as you saw when we were outside kind of talking about what we do here. And so a lot of that also is only what I can grow in Zone 5 in the U.S. So we have other people who have community gardens in the South or in the Southwest, West Coast, and places where they can grow a lot of different herbs in different types of zones. So that's a little bit about it. So how about I show you what we have? So here are just a few things showing. These are some of the completed products that people donate. Dr. Bronner's was really generous, and they donated hand sanitizers and soaps, and a lot of these will go into our community care kits. And what those are is people often will put together generally regarded as safe types of things that can be distributed out to everyone in little bags, like care kits, winter care kits for unhoused, or something like that, which will include things like soap, electrolytes, hand sanitizer, maybe a chest rub, or lotions or things like that. Tea blends and individual tea bags, because a lot of unhoused folks don't have access to a tea ball, so we do things like that so that it's really easy to use, and that people can, inhalers, things like that, so that we have donations like the CBD lotion, which is wonderful. We make pain blends, and we'll also make chest rubs out of these for stress. As you can imagine, when we're doing this, a lot of it is stress, trauma, anxiety, and then in the winter is cold and flu season and immune support. And then New Chapter donates things that are both we have a lot of different supplements like vitamin D, but we also have a lot of things like multivitamins. And that's really great too, because, as herbalists, if we tell people to eat 5 colors a day, that's kind of ridiculous to someone who can't afford food. So having a really good quality multivitamin or like a prenatal vitamin can be really important. And I love how New Chapter donates so many different products because they get to a lot of different people. So we also get tinctures donated, either large stock bottles like this or individual tinctures, which is really wonderful because A lot of groups are serving clinics, like we just donated, we shipped to Maui, and they were saying something like 9,000 people a week they're serving. So, it's a lot. And so it has to come from a lot of different places. And so things like this are really great because they go a long way. And we'll get things from either the manufacturers themselves or from like dispensaries who are closing or they have too much of something and they share their extra. So even just one of these is a big donation is amazing. So this is just, one of our storage spaces. So it's kind of small in here, but we intake donations of all sizes. We even get pallets in. So a lot of those get shelved right here. A lot of our supplies get shelved, all of our containers and things, and everything is then labeled and put in boxes. So you can see just kind of a little bit more about how much we get donated and the types of things that we have here. So we also have a U.S. seed grant program that's operated out of this space here. And what that means is every single year we get donations of seeds from seed companies, and then we redistribute those out to seed grants. And what those seed grants mean is that coordinators around the country need seeds to start their community gardens. And we know food is medicine as well, so it's both food and herb gardens. And so we do this in one central place just because each individual chapter would have a difficult time going and getting seeds donated. But what we do is we try to partner and pair the seed donors region with the region of the coordinator so that they have seeds that are local to them. We also have a really amazing donor, Earthbeat Seeds, who donates a lot of medicinal seeds, which are both native, endangered, and at-risk plants that are on the United Plant Savers lists. And these also get distributed out to people. We also grow seeds here of hard-to-find items or things that people are asking for that are culturally relevant that we can't find anywhere. And we also distribute those through that. But this is all seeds. As you can see, it's amazing. People are so generous. And so if you are a member, we also open it up to members after, coordinators first, members second, because a lot of people, even if they aren't like a chapter coordinator, they still want to grow community gardens that benefit their local communities. So this helps people get gardens growing in schools, VA centers, senior centers, hospice yards. We've had indigenous communities plant youth gardens, things like that. So it's really amazing that these seeds literally make it around all 50 states. So what we also get donated is herbs, as I was saying before. And so what we have is we store herbs in here. They're all alphabetized, which is great. That's what my 18-year-old does. He loves ordering things and making things perfect. So we intake donated supplies, we review them and make sure that everything looks cool, that we know who they're from, we lot and batch number them, and we sort everything into first in, first out. We know what all the dates are, so then everyone who requests herbs, we can then bag them up and ship them out to people. And we get all sizes. Some people think that we only take things like by the pound, but often we'll even get like 4 ounce. A lot of Mountain Rose herbs, actually. We get a lot of like the smaller bags that people didn't use when they were taking a class, when they had an ingredient list, or for smaller shops or businesses that are like, I have 7 of these, I only need 2. So we get all types of sizes and all types of plants. We also, a lot of what we need is obviously like stress, adaptogens, immune support, all of those things, because that's the primary need. And so in some of those things I can't grow here as well. So we get a lot, and people are amazing. So anyone who's ever donated herbs, they go to good homes, and they're always well used. Yeah, and this too, I guess. Yeah, look at this, like gallons of St. John's wort oil. We even get like a bulk oil donated by folks and things like that. So everything gets used.
Well, thank you for the tour.
Yeah,
that was
was
awesome.
Great to show you. After with all of that's happened with COVID, we used to have volunteers here coming into the space and everything. So, we're kind of transitioning back into finding ways to have people come and be a part of the space as we're trying to still kind of navigate what that looks like.
Absolutely. It's an ever-evolving world that we're living in here,
yes,
so I
exactly.
get it. Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy. Well, I would like to kind of go back in time a little bit and learn a little bit more about Denise. Kind of just curious about your herbal journey, how you got your start and how you kind of got into this whole herbalism thing in general.
Yeah. I was telling you a little bit earlier that we moved to Wisconsin in 2000. We came up, we saw the Dane County Farmers Market and went mountain biking, and we were like, okay, that's it. We literally moved that weekend. Nobody even knew. We were like, let's go get an apartment. Yeah, we fell in love with it, and green, and people are so friendly, and there's, in Chicago traffic, I have to tell you, after one last winter of like blizzards that shut down the L and standing out in snowbanks, waiting for a bus to come that was full over and over with 30 below zero wind chills, I was like, nope. If I'm going to have a winter, it's going to be gorgeous. And Wisconsin winters are beautiful. That is actually a snowmobile trail right there too that goes right past. People wave as they go by. My husband's coworkers, hey. Yeah. But so when we first moved here, we had our own business, and we really loved getting out in nature and things. And I've always wanted to grow. I've lived in California, I lived in New Mexico a few different times, I've lived in Florida, and I loved growing things. But when I moved back to Chicago, I lived in a small apartment without even a deck, so everything was like in pots and windows. And so the first thing we did in an apartment here was to basically fill it up so that it was so full of plants we couldn't sit out there even. There was no room for chairs. And then we got, we moved to a small house once we started, when Gavin was, I was pregnant with Gavin, my youngest, and Ami was 1.5, I think, because they're about 20 months apart. And we wanted a yard because, you're like, hey, we need a yard. We need to be close to a park. We need neighbors. And it was new urbanism because we thought that was a great way to, what new urbanism was about was reducing the inputs on just lawn. If you don't have so much grass, then you're not mowing like monocropping things. You're not just wasting water and resources on lawns. Yeah. And it was all about being green. And so the house was a greenhouse and, all of these things. But it was only 18 feet wide. And we literally, over the course of those years, as my kids were young, it was like, let's show, where does your food come from? Where can we? And then my oldest, Ami, is allergic to, I exaggerate only slightly to say she's allergic to everything. And she finally became unallergic to dairy somewhat after 20 years. But, so many things when kids are young, it's so hard to find out what they're allergic to. And we are finding out that additives and everything, even just in purchased things, they're often fillers or things like that. And she was reacting to everything. And so we started going, hey, let's grow our own, let's make our own salve, let's make our own balm, let's make our own bath soaps and things like that. And our own Epsom bath salt, salt soaks with our lavender that we grew ourselves. And we found out she wasn't reacting. And to the foods, and we would have a CSA when the kids were younger. So we'd always go to the farms to pick it up. And I think it was so important for them to know where food comes from, and to be a part of that process. And of course, once you start, you can't stop. Yeah. Anyone who's a plant person knows this. So, we kept growing and growing. When we left that house after 11 years, all that was left of lawn was one single mower width, and it was a full food forest, which is amazing. Food, we had raised beds in the front where we said, take what you need. So that all the kids in the neighborhood would be picking in the raised bed to find strawberries and things like that. So then we moved more to a suburban home for a little bit more land. And what we did then was, our house is not finished, so nothing is graded. So I went and we got a community garden plot, but it wasn't enough because it's never enough once you start growing things. Right. And so we met someone who said, hey, I know this woman who wants to barter. And so I did design work for her small business. She had a goat milk soap and natural bath and body product business. And she bartered. I did design work for her, and she gave me a 50 by 150 foot space of land and allowed me access to her water. And we grew. So that summer, what we did was called the Happy Flower Project. And it was an experiment to see if we could grow something on this scale with only us, because we always dreamed of having land. So what we did is we grew flowers for the food pantry for a whole summer. And every single Friday, we'd go and cut them. We'd make bouquets, and we'd go to the food pantry, and we would drop them off, and people could take free bouquets because people don't treat themselves when they don't have access to food. So they feel guilty. Yeah, they feel guilty. So people, just seeing people smile, it was amazing. And, it was a family endeavor. We did it together. And we also would donate vegetables to the food pantry, and we would donate herbs and baggies that we grew. But it made us realize when we got to 680 or something bouquets that we handmade and delivered in that one summer, that we can grow at this scale without having a lot of other people, with just our family. Sure. And we found this place just by accident, when we weren't thinking of moving. We'd only had that other house for a few years, and it was oh my gosh, It was amazing. And for us, having all of these sensitivities and allergies, part of it was you could tell there's yarrow everywhere in the ground. There's every single thing, violets everywhere, there's veronica everywhere, self-heal is in the yard. So they weren't using weed killers, which was a big important thing to us, because a lot of times when you see, like, you move into homes with giant grass swaths, it's just, that's what they do. So we also went into the house, and most people go and look at a house and they go to look at the building and see what it's like. We went to go sit inside it to see if we reacted, because if people had like scented cleaning supplies or plug-ins and things like that, we were like, we couldn't. And it was actually, it's all hardwoods. You could tell that they didn't use anything.
You're referring to this house right here?
Yes, this one, yeah. I mean, and it was amazing. And to have the land and all of that, it was just incredible. And that was my chance to say, you know what, I want to grow everything. And so we did, and that's what I love to do. I don't grow, you can tell, like, looking, it's smaller. I like guilds, permaculture. I like doing underplantings and layers and forest gardens. We do have some raised beds to try to keep like voles, rabbits, and deer away. But we also have so many layered plantings here because growing things that mimic natural conditions, I think, makes more powerful medicine, because that's what plants are. No, plants don't grow in rows. And I understand that really large farms, they need to have some way to manage that space and something that is manageable. But in nature, plants grow all like codependent on each other and creating all of these like underground systems of like roots and moisture and nutrients between them, and that actually makes plants stronger, I think. And so that's what we've been doing, and I like experimenting, so we'll grow like 10 of something just to see how it is, and once you start, you can't stop. This is my theme.
Yeah, I love that herbalism is kind of like an evolution for you based on necessity for you and your family. But your day job was essentially as a creative director, but you did a lot of this stuff on the side. And
we started, as we started doing that, I started taking courses. I wanted to learn. I did like family herbalist courses and, master herbalist courses and doing flower essence certification and aromatherapy certification and really looking to, and also permaculture. I'm a permaculture designer. I did that during COVID. We've always grown that way, but I thought, hey, I want to get, that's me, my brain. I have to know everything about everything. So
you're an avid reader. I know that much.
I am. Yes, I read hundreds of books. a year at least.
I thought you were going to say per week. I was like,
no, we will. I usually, we used to check out like 20 to 30 a week. Yes, and I'm a speed reader, but I also have a photographic memory, so it works really well because I can read it in my head.
Nice combo.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. But I love learning about plants, and I love learning about all of these different systems and how things work together, and how plants communicate and how we use them in our body, what they do to our bodies. It's amazing. And so, I'm a never-ending learner. I'm just... you can never know too much. There's always more to learn. And that's what's amazing about herbalism, I think.
Totally. Never bored.
No, there's always something you don't know.
Or like reading about different perspectives and like gaining new insight from other cultural aspects of herbalism. Yep. I kind of want to stick on the permaculture side of things. You have a wonderful Substack, which I highly recommend you go subscribe to. And I'd like you to kind of plug it and like tell people how to do that and whatnot. But on your Substack, you recently wrote about debunking common misconceptions about permaculture, and there was two different ones that I was hoping you kind of expound upon, if you wouldn't mind. So one of them was the fallacy of all or nothing. Do you mind talking to the audience about the fallacy of all or nothing when it pertains to permaculture?
That is, I think, the key.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people it's the same with herbalism, right? You get the hardcore, and there's nothing wrong with being hardcore. I'm hardcore in my own way, but I think that the all or nothing philosophy of a lot of things, that's how humans are, I think, in many ways. It scares people who are like, I don't have time. I don't want to do that. And the joke, and you can edit this out, the pee in your compost thing, it's like that. It intimidates people. Yeah. If you're not enough, you're not hardcore enough. Oh my gosh, you bought something with a plastic bag. Right. Yeah. We have such a fear of being judged. And with social media, anybody who's been on a Facebook feed knows you say one thing or you ask the wrong question and you're attacked. And people, I think, are afraid of that. And if we're going to get more and more people looking at plant medicine as a viable way to like incorporate healthier health and wellness, pieces into their lifestyle, we have to like allow people to do it on their own terms at their own pace. And so I like the idea of like doing what you can with what you have where you are, and nothing is all or nothing, and nothing is perfect. You know, I don't pee in my compost, and that's just some people do, and you know, and that's fine, but it's okay. That's the same with the blue tarps. You know, a lot of people think that that means you have like tarps everywhere and cardboard everywhere, and you can.
Yeah.
Sure, it works. You can put black plastic on something with rocks for a year, and then you have a cleared bed and it's no dig and it's wonderful. But you also can do it in other ways based on what you want. And a lot of people are afraid of, especially if we're looking at smaller lawns or HOAs, you know, we're looking at people who have to follow rules. A lot of that can be really scary and intimidating. And the thing is that there's so many positive benefits of permaculture. And one of the things I love about permaculture in general is it applies to the natural world and growing plants and growing herbs and growing food and how we build ecosystems and animals and life, but it also can apply to me, my lifestyle, my business, you know, right livelihood, how we have our family. And I think that that is so, you know, of course you could probably say that about anything, you know, it could apply, but I think that that's what social permaculture is too, is that idea that we're creating like mutual aid and community-based systems that kind of exists outside of like just a capitalistic kind of structure. And yeah, I look like a suburban mom and I'm like, no to the man. But, you know, that's what I think. It's just like being relatable to people and saying you don't have to do every single thing. You don't, you know, hugelculture is amazing, but not everybody wants to have a big giant pile of just tree branches in a hole in their yard that doesn't look gorgeous if they have an HOA, and that's okay. Right. And I could rant about that all day long, you know, but it's really, I think that we don't want to intimidate people by saying you're not enough, you know, because we're preventing people from trying things that will actually make their life better and will make this world better. I mean, if we're talking about climate change, we have to do something. We all do. And every single little step, I mean, there's some big things. We can all look at the big picture and say it's large corporations or large things that are really making the biggest impact. And that is true. We may not, you know, we may be drops in the bucket, but each drop I think matters because we still fill it up in the end. And so every person being able to do what they can is really important without feeling like they're going to be attacked or that they're not enough.
Yeah, I feel like I used to be a very all or nothing type person. And as I've gotten older, I've fallen into more of the constant improvement over time. So I love your approach. Feels like a lot of your work is based around like wholeness or being holistic and just like, I just really admire all of the work that you're doing. So thank you. And thanks for sharing. Also kind of sticking on the Substack, you recently wrote about your infatuation with fall and winter. And now that I'm kind of a new Wisconsinite, I would love to hear you talk about your love of fall, but particularly winter, so I can kind of be prepared and ready, because it sounds like you're fond of like wintertime here in Wisconsin. So
I love 4 seasons. I've lived in California. I lived in New Mexico. It's the most beautiful place I've ever lived. It's absolutely gorgeous. I lived in Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and then Cochiti, which is you know, a town owned by the reservation there. It's kind of like within that area, and it's gorgeous. But you know, we don't have seasons, and I think I see people always returning kind of to their roots as we get older, you know, in that way. And it's not only, I think, the draw of family. You know, I think a lot of people come from places where everyone has moved so far that it's hard to kind of recapture that. We're a very mobile generation, you know, that recently where people aren't where they came from. But, you know, for me, I think part of it too is gardening is really intensive. You know, this growing acres of food and medicine, it takes a lot of work, which I love. It's great. I could dig in dirt all day long. You know, I wander around with baskets more than I do anything else probably. But it's a lot. And I think we all need, you know, there's a book called Wintering that I want to read that I saw. It's kind of like that. We need the mental shift for us to be able to go and sit and be still and be quiet. And I think winter does that naturally through it getting dark at 4:15 p.m., you know. Totally. In about a few weeks, it'll be dark at like 4:15 p.m. And I think we have to embrace that. And I actually have a very hard time. I love winter more than anything. You know, in fall, it's gorgeous. I love the change of seasons. I love being cold more than I like being hot, which is funny because I love growing things. And, you know, my husband literally could like live where it's 115 degrees every day and be perfectly happy, and me, not so much. But I do love how vibrant and green and alive it is. And I'm also in awe that we can have these same plants that we're just producing all summer long. It's like 50 below zero wind chills, and they come back next year. That is just incredible. And imagine how powerful that is on a cellular level, you know, for those plants. But I think also we need rest. You know, we need, and I think especially as someone who does a lot of activism work and a lot of mutual aid work, it's all the time. And what we have is a hard time slowing down. And I think which is why a lot of people burn out doing a lot of this mutual aid and relief work and, you know, community herbalism, because we feel guilty if we're not always giving, you know, because there are always people that need us. But if we don't, you know, they say if you don't refill your cup, you know, your cup is going to be empty. And I think that seasons naturally make us do that. And, you know, I think that that's really what I like about it. I love in the winter thinking and planning and scheming for next year's garden. And I love thinking about what didn't work, what did work, what was amazing, what do I really want to grow, and looking at different things. If I had to grow all year round, I don't know if I'd have time to like dream about what's coming next, you know? And yes, there's something about, you know, if you get stuck outside, you could die, that is, you know, intense, very intense about where we live too. Yeah. But it's also so beautiful, you know, and you'll see that because you know, it is very cold. And I love snowy winters the most, you know, being tucked in a snowstorm with the winds howling outside, sitting in front of a fire with a glass of port or a hot tea. There's nothing better. And I know, you know, my family, you know, I think that we all like winter a little bit, you know, just that cocooning.
Well, you got me excited for it. I know I didn't schedule any interviews for December. Yeah. We're really trying to take this rest and relaxation time during the winter seriously. So yeah, you're right. You have to like rejuvenate your creative juices. And what better time to do that during, you know, say December, January, February or whatever. So yeah, I'm getting stoked for it.
Yeah. And that's, you know, then in January when you're like, oh my gosh, I just somehow made it from like November to January and it was a blur. Yeah. How do we get here? Then it's seed starting time.
Yeah. Right. Now, come March and April, if it's still kind of nasty weather, are you starting to go stir crazy at that point here, or?
You know, we have a dog. Okay. That is a great way to make yourself get outside no matter what the weather. Yeah. You know, although when it was 30 below zero actual temperatures, the first week that we got him home, that was not fun. But, you know, it's really a great way to get out and to see the landscape in a different way. I mean, so many things become visible that are not visible during the summer. And I think that that's really, you know, that's that permaculture principle is always like observe and interact. Like, what do I see? Yeah. That's where we see where the animal tracks are and paths are too. So we know where not maybe to plant certain things, you know, or where are there always areas where the wind is blowing and you can see the drifts of snow creating unique patterns, because maybe that's a better, you know, area for a windbreak. So I think we also learn so much from seeing things in a completely different light without all of this luscious green covering it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an avid walker, and last winter, I was still going on walks, I want to say in 5-degree weather, but no way I'm touching that during -30. I'll just stay inside.
The dogs say yes, we're still going outside.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I guess it's all about layers at that point. Can you tell us what regenerative herbalism is? And then I know you also have a course called Regenerative Herbalism, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're working on that. That's what my family and I, we've been working together all year. Yeah. You know, I was doing clinical practice and doing volunteering with Herbalists Without Borders, the Veterans Resiliency Holistic Clinic for years, and doing a lot of clinical practice on that side. And, you know, this year my goal was to get more involved in education and combining permaculture and herbalism, because I think that it's a perfect match, social permaculture for that community herbalism and mutual aid side, and also in growing plants in a way that we know can be sustainable long term. And with regenerative, you know, sustainable is maintaining the status quo, keeping things as they are for the future generations. But we know with rapidly changing climate and all, you know, so much is happening. And a lot of plant species are becoming more endangered. A lot of even animal and insect species are becoming extinct. Sustainable isn't enough because it's still going to just disappear over time if all we do is try to keep the minimum. So while sustainable is good, regenerative is better. And what regenerative focuses on is making things better. We're improving the soil. We're reducing our waste. We're giving back more to our communities. We're looking at ways to actually create or recreate and kind of rejuvenate ecosystems and pollinator habitats and all of these amazing plants, rebuilding the stands of these wild plants. And regenerative, I think, is the only way to go into the future, because then we're actually leaving things better than we found it, which we need to do at this time. And if we want all these amazing plants to be here in 50 years, we really need to be doing something now. And so with the Regenerative Herbalist course, some of it is kind of looking at how can you be more sustainable and regenerative locally. How can you grow your own? And it doesn't mean, again, you don't have to be all or nothing. You can grow just the top 10 herbs that you use the most. You can grow the 5 herbs that are the most expensive or hard for you to find because we've had supply chain issues. Right. Even growing something or creating some system to help reduce your waste, let's say, could be a really big impact. And for us, like our low waste, no waste system, we have chickens. Not everyone can have chickens, but they eat all of the garden scraps. They give us eggs. They go into the compost. The compost comes back and feeds all of our beds. So we're actually rejuvenating the soil, and we're increasing this rich living soil that we so need. So much. I think we were walking through a prairie, because we go hiking all the time. Wisconsin is gorgeous, all the prairie walks. And it said that, with prairie plants, 70%, up to 70% of the plant is actually below the surface, in the prairie. And that's kind of, imagine that on everything that we do. We only see the top, but if we're rejuvenating, we need to include that, because that's more than half of the living matter that we're looking at or dealing with. So by working with our soil and working with our environments and habitats, we're actually making things better. And then there's also the other aspect with herbalism that is the regenerative way, is how do we source our products? And a lot of companies are really great at being transparent nowadays. They're being more conscious and sharing how they're doing, what steps they're taking to be more sustainable in their packaging and their and also social permaculture also includes maybe fair wages and how people are being treated, and do they have ethical business practices, and are they ethically harvesting, or do they have partnerships that actually give a fair wage to the farm workers, or is only the middleman making the money?
Right.
So all these things, and it seems overwhelming to people. It's that's too much. But if all we do is we look at what we are sourcing ourselves, and how can we do, maybe you will still buy certain things from somewhere that comes from somewhere else. But if you can grow, why would I ever need to buy Monarda when it grows everywhere here? And if I can learn more about that and find ways, and Monarda has really great properties that maybe mimic other plants that I would have to have imported. So maybe I still buy some of my things from these companies that I know are really sustainable focused and really great, but I can increase my local networks. I can do share programs or grow a row, or give back to my community, and find ways to create local networks that help make us more resilient in the face of climate change or disasters, but also that allow us to reduce our, they call it a carbon footprint, but it reduce our footprint on what we're doing and what waste we're producing and what type of foot pattern do we have with all of our products that we buy, even from our containers to our carrier oils. And while I can't press my own carrier oil yet here, finding ways, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing again, maybe we're going to experiment with evening primrose oil, or, what can we find locally that actually, alcohol even for tinctures. There's a lot of ways to look locally and see what you can find. And then you've reduced your footprint significantly, and you're being more regenerative, while you still aren't saying, well, I'm never allowed to have coffee ever again because I can't grow coffee. And that's not what we're saying, right? You're
There's
not saying
fair for life coffee out there.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
And there are great companies that pay fair wages to people. And, nobody's saying you can't have coffee. But, it's where else can you look to make an impact with what you have where you are, and I think that is all of it. So what we're planning on doing after the first one is kind of grow. So how do you look at what you can grow? How can you design and create your own herb gardens and, urban food gardens and guilds and polycultures and food forests, or whatever, you need for what your space is, and learning how to do that. And then the second part will be for businesses. And the business owners can say, well, then what else can I look at? How do I look at sourcing? How do I look at what is social permaculture? What are the 8, what are the things of capitalism, and capital? What is capital? Because we look at capital as being money, but capital can be relationships, it can be friends, it can be community resources, it can be things that we already have. It can even be our belief system, that's a resource. So kind of taking business owners to that next step, because that's something that's important to me too. The more I work, I distribute a lot of herbs and I work with a lot of companies, and, we're looking at, we get cardboard here, we get, all these containers, we're doing all that, but how can we look at how we can do this in a way that really reduces the waste, has the greatest impact, and yet still gets supplies to people that need them. So it's kind of just, how do we look at things and how do we evaluate where we are and make choices? And, a lot of that also is about relationships.
Yeah.
So, how can we create more collaborative relationships? How can we create non-hierarchical and more equitable relationships with employees or with our communities? Because I think a lot of that top-down kind of thing is like that old, 1970s Lee Iacocca, kind of thing. And a lot of communities, especially if we're looking at BIPOC communities or the LGBTQ communities, we're like, we don't want top-down anymore. We need to have an equal voice in this conversation. And how can we create that on a business level? How can we create that on a community level? And how can we create relationships that actually don't harm, that are relationships can be rejuvenative as well,
We're social creatures.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that's what, again, why I love permaculture. It's not about just like, well, I'm growing tomatoes. It's about how can I make an impact on the world and how can I make it better? So that's the big picture.
Couple questions. A, did you coin social permaculture? Wait, shit, I already forgot the second question. I'm on foggy sleep brain right now.
Sorry.
Oh, shit, now that everyone's staring at me, I totally forgot. That's what it was. And B, you mentioned your belief systems can be capital, and I just thought that was really interesting and hope you could expound upon that.
Yeah, social permaculture is not something I created. It's kind of been there, but I think that it's evolving.
Yeah.
And that with the 3 principles of permaculture being earth care, people care, and fair share. It used to be future care, but that people care and earth care is future care. Yeah. Fair share is really about how to create equitable systems on a personal level and in everything else. And so social permaculture to me mimics a lot of what this work is that we're trying to do here, which is, building communities, building collaborative work environments. And, that's why we do the U.S. Donation Distribution Network, where we try to redistribute, resources equitably, which means that the people who need it get it. And how it is with herbalism. Often when there are calls to action, when something happens, a disaster's been in the newspaper, it's a big, huge, and that's great that people are paying attention at that moment. But then people make a call out and ask for things and everyone sends, but the popular people or the people with the most followers are getting the most support. And that means a lot of our communities that are the most in need, doing the most work, working locally within their own communities, aren't getting those resources. And so to me, social permaculture also reflects that. Like, how do we redistribute equitably what we have? And that might be, I haven't figured that out on land yet. That's one of those areas too. Like, how do we manage that kind of like, not only colonialism with land, but also just the attainability and people not being able to attain or get land, especially in this economic market right now. How do we look at that in multi-generational wealth? And how do we look at redistributing things and making it fair? Or, rebalancing that kind of the tipping point. And see, now I forgot B.
B was, all right, here we go. It had to do with, you mentioned your belief systems as a form of your own capital.
Yeah, and it is. Some people that's religion, and that actually gives them that capital. But belief systems can also be how we feel about everything. How do we feel about our communities? How do we feel about our families? For us, like my social permaculture in a way was that we homeschooled my kids their whole life because we didn't want to be a part of the system. And there's nothing wrong with the system for other people. I understand that. Again, it's not all or nothing. We're not like dogmatic here. But for us, it was really important. Can we do other things in our life, like explore the natural world and follow our interests and do deep dives and stay learning about the things that we're interested in. And it's the same with, our food system. What can we do with the food system to actually get things out and redistribute them? But, trying to think of what is not, like hard, like, not tangible, like what types of resources do we have? And it is like family, it is community, it is our belief systems, and it can be what rejuvenates you or makes you feel good too, and often people are either humans feel guilty all the time or humans feel entitled. There's
I'm on the guilt spectrum.
I'm on the guilt spectrum. So, and how do you balance that, right? How do you balance that? The people who are giving are always the ones who are giving, and the people who feel entitled are always the ones who are entitled,
I thought about it that way.
Yeah. I mean, and then, but how are we going to make a change? And how do we, that's why we can't make big, we're looking at, like, how do you change the whole entire, like, capitalist system? It's a big question. But can we do it locally, and can we do it, and that's why, like, the little free libraries are really cool.
I love
or
those.
Like, the
Free
time
pantries.
banks, and all of those too. And time banks where you can swap time, who says what is of value and what is worth money and what's worth more money than something else, and it doesn't mean that we all don't need to make a living. We all do, and herbalists deserve to make a living. That's what is hard too, is that why, how much can you deserve, right? And there's that, and that's why I like taking money out of the equation in herbalism often, although again, herbalists deserve to earn fair wages and earn a living and be able to survive on this, but how do you then, if we are giving and we are creating community programs, how do we take money out of that equation so that we aren't saying, well, but you're taking from me? It's like we're all working on this together, and we've created this like non-monetary system, and how do we use that instead so that people are still, it's that equity again, right? How do we balance all of these things? So that was a kind of roundabout answer about that, but
I like it.
All of it comes together, in some way, and what we believe defines like how we respond to other people and how we create relationships or how we work in our communities. And so it's important to think about and consider and kind of look at what, we talk about like capitalism, what are we doing right now that could be changed? What are we just relying on? Like, we just got in a groove, we're just doing the status quo, whatever, everybody else is doing it, I'm going to do it too, because whatever, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't impact me, especially look at me, a white woman in Wisconsin.
Right.
Hey, I could just not do anything. Right. But that's not, of course I'm on the guilt end too, but how can then we actually look at that and shift that groove into, well, what can we do that actually does make a change that is outside of that system, so we're not like just recreating that. That's that whole white saviorism thing too. How do we recreate community systems of support for people without highlighting the wrong people? You
have so much knowledge, Denise, but you're also raising the bigger questions here, so we got to do more interviews, and I'm so thankful that you're in the Wisconsin herbal community, because coming from Oregon, there's so many herbalists there, and I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into when I moved to Wisconsin, but there's so many cool peeps like you here, so I'm excited to get to know you more. Why don't we kind of wrap it up with a couple just kind of fun questions, at least fun for me. I know you're an avid reader, so these don't have to be herbalism books per se. They can be if you want, but are there 3 books that you're currently enjoying that you think the audience might like to hear about?
Oh, that is a good question. One book I'm revisiting is A Timeless Way to Build. And it's funny because it's actually a permaculture book, it's an architecture book, and it's a systems design software engineering book. So I had the book and I was reading it because it's really about systems design, which is permaculture. And my husband came to me and he's like, can you look on Abe Books to get this like a timeless way to build? We're talking about this in our software engineering like book club. And I was like, I own it. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, it's a permaculture book. And he's no, it's not. It's like a systems design. Like, so I love that. That's what systems design is. Yeah. And it's from the 70s, I think. It's but it's really, and it's an architecture book, but natural architecture, but it's the philosophy of teams and equity, really, and in creating all of these things. So it's basically everything that we've just talked about. So that's one, and I'm rereading it because of that. I was like, I have it.
I just got to say before you go on to the next, I've been hearing, or a lot of people that I like and respect, they say instead of continuously reading new books, it's good to just reread the classics that you already enjoy, just to further, get that in your brain. So I love that you say that you're rereading it. So
I read all the time. Yeah. And, one of the things is that I actually have sensitivities and allergies as well. My daughter got it from somewhere, right?
Somewhere, yeah.
And my whole family. But I couldn't have books in my house for a while, and I'm a complete book person. So we would check out books from the library, and I'd have to see if they had a smell first, because like the really new ones have that soy ink and bleach and formaldehyde. And then the old books would smell like mildew or mold, so I'd have to find like the perfect
sweet spot.
Yes, but that has gotten better. I think just through our house is just like this safe space, you know. So I think that helped a lot in with our healing, along with all of our herbs that we grow here, you know.
Yeah.
With like histamine and all of that. But so I started kind of hoarding books, I guess is the right word for it, from getting all the used books again, so that we would have this library. And I think it's over 1,000 books just since the beginning of COVID. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But that's why I love Abe Books, because you're like $3, $4.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Right.
But so, you know, I like reading like quantum mechanics and, you know, philosophy things too, and science. We're our family is like a science trivia kind of family. But I also love reading herbal books. And so some of the books I have, and I don't even know who the author is, but we've been looking at perfume making, because I've been talking with another herbalist and aromatherapist in New York, and we're experimenting with like natural perfumery. So we've been kind of looking at that and it's really interesting to see what the different binders and what plants and like resins and things are used in like fixing scents for humans, because I think that like aromatherapy in that aspect, what can we do ourselves? That's kind of what my latest experiment is, you know, is like, what can we actually distill here, and then how would you actually fix that in a better way so that it is more like long-term smell, because, you know, when we're looking at like impacting trauma and things, you know, people want to have something that lingers. So that's, you know, I've been reading that as well. And I've been reading like the How to Grow Chinese Herbs by Peg Schaefer again, and the Materia Medica by Thomas Avery Goran and stuff, because I'm working to grow more Asian herbs here, because, you know, we get a lot of Western herbs, but there are a lot of, you know, East Asian or like TCM practitioners within some of these mutual aid systems, and they don't have the herbs that they need, and they're really hard to find in the U.S. with the supply chain issues that have happened in the last 3 years. So I'm trying to grow a lot of things that would be relevant for their practices. So that's where I've been lately, is kind of diving into what kind of plants, because again, you want to recreate your local ecosystem. And a lot of those like China, Siberia kind of plants in there would grow in our climate here. So I've been reading that, but trying to think of what reading books, like Through the Looking Glass was what I read recently again too, because why not?
That one sounds familiar. What's that one about?
It's the Alice in Wonderland, but Through the Looking Glass is like that next. Yeah, I have actually vintage books. I collect children's books that are really old, and so I have the Through the Looking Glass, and I saw like a preview for it on like Netflix or something, and I was like, I need to read that, you know. So
lovely.
It's good.
I've been hearing a lot about this Thomas Guerin guy, so I gotta have him on the show.
It's because he just moved back to the U.S. from being in China for decades, and so he's...
I want to say he took over the Tierras School, East West. Okay,
Yep, he did.
Are you all growing Schisandra out here, or can
I keep trying. That one hasn't been quite happy,
Yeah.
and that's that's definitely on my list. But it also takes a little bit to get it to be those big giant. What is it? Deb's Soul, her book, you know, she has a lot of that on like growing some of those plants, which is really amazing. And she has a similar climate to here.
That's right.
You know,
she's East Coast somewhere, I think.
Yeah, like Vermont or
That's
Maine,
right,
I think. Yeah. I should know that, but I... Sorry.
Well, I read in your bio that you have synesthesia, if I said that correctly. Synesthesia. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are so many different types that people have. Some people see like alphabet, like in different colors or letters, and mine is kind of, it has a few different ways. Like I see bandwidths. That's why I got into audio engineering and was in music. A musician. I used to play in bands and things too when I was younger, and also studied like Italian opera for years. But music is a visual wavelength to me, and so people who actually sing out of tune, it doesn't match. I can see, it's like it. See, I'm waving my arms and I'm not supposed to, sorry. No, but, you know, like that's how you describe it. But when people are exactly on, and it doesn't mean that that they have a perfect voice. It means that it's the right tone for what is happening. It almost lines up like this blue, perfect, like sine wave almost that I can see. And it's really amazing. So Like my husband laughs because like Eminem, I'm not into Eminem, but something about the tonality that he uses, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you see that? It's like blue.
Interesting.
But it's
Wow.
perfect, and he does
Yeah.
that, and I don't know what it is, but some people sing, and I'm like, oh, that's painful. Or they're speaking voices too. It's really interesting. That's why we watch a lot of movies in other languages, because then I don't get distracted by whether or not what they're saying matches the tone, which sounds it's really hard to describe, but and so a lot of that is, it's like my husband sees things more like the Matrix, where letters, numbers come down, and he codes that way. It's almost intuitive, and it's like that with music for me, and like sound.
Does he view coding as like an art form?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and he doesn't get to do it as much anymore. That's the thing. You all of a sudden now you have to like tell other people, what to do, and then you don't get to do it. So we have a smart home here, and so they work on a lot of that.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I want to say I've seen a painter who listens to music and then they paint using their synesthesia.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that before?
Yeah. And I would say that is similar in how I see things, because I'm an artist as well. I've been only doing botanical things recently, but I used to do more people, and the colors of the people definitely had to do with the mood. But it has to be that whatever the feeling is or the mood of it is that color palette. Yeah, definitely.
Very interesting. Well, thanks for sharing. I guess last couple questions as we wrap up here. Any exciting projects you got coming up that you want to share? And also, please, plug your upcoming course, how to find out about it, along with your awesome Substack.
Yeah, the Substack is Denise Cusack at .substack.com, and I'm going to be writing there a lot more. Yeah. I've really been enjoying Substack. It's really great platform, I think, getting out. And I like the notes where you can just kind of randomly like share things to everybody in the world, which is really nice. I like that a lot. It's kind of like Blogger in the 90s, right?
Remember that?
Where everybody's kind of back to like communicating, and you get people actually clicking and opening.
Via writing too.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
And like communication, because that's what I missed. I missed that when we went to Facebook, that you kind of stopped having that like actual back and forth. Right. It was either just, just liking is a passive aggressive thing, right? But it's not there. You're not like interacting. You're not learning from each other. Right. And I really like that. But our Regenerative Herbalist course is launching. We're going to be doing the like a masterclass, a free 2-hour masterclass and party to launch it. It's going to be in the next month or so. We've had so much happening that it's like going to be soon, but we don't have the date yet because of all of this. But if people go to the website and sign up for my mailing list, then they get an invite to the party. And anybody who attends live, we're thinking of some really cool, like eco-friendly gift that everybody will get for coming to the party too. Just, because nobody wants to be at a party by themselves. We got to have a party.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
I like it. Bring some port.
Right, exactly. Have everyone chit chat. And so we're going to also be talking about kind of what the course is going into, and doing some deep dives into some of the philosophy of kind of why are we here and what are we doing as herbalists regeneratively in this community, and how can we like build community, so that it's kind of like a free class as well as a party. And what is coming up soon, I'm really excited that I'm going to be presenting at the Canadian Herb Conference. One of the topics is going to be using permaculture principles to design your regenerative herb garden. But I'm also teaching about mutual aid and community herbalism, which is, of course, what I love. What we do a lot here.
I got to clarify, are we referring to the virtual one? Or
yes, the virtual one. Sweet. Yes. Very good. We're not doing in person still because of my daughter.
For sure. We just promoted that on Instagram, so I just want to make sure. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be doing that. And that's what I've been working on this year, is I want to be teaching more and, sharing more and doing a lot of this work. And, my family's included in a lot of the work we're doing, which is really cool, because I have kids who are
Gavin's in school right now.
Yeah, he is. And
this
that's
is school.
The thing. Yeah,
I love
exactly.
it.
We want to. I'm really happy that I have like adult kids that actually are not like, go away, mom.
Like, well, you seem pretty cool, so yeah.
We have a good family. That's so important. So I love them.
Well, great job, being a mom. Everything you do, you're such an inspiration, Denise. So. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. Even with the rain, we didn't get wet somehow. It's amazing.
Yeah, this nice little gazebo kept us dry, and really had a nice time checking out your land and the Herbalists Without Borders behind the scenes and everything. So thank you for joining us on the Herbalist Hour.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our Herb Rally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an Herb Rally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our Herb Rally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.